Hey guys, what's up? It's CS back here with another installment, and here I'm going to break down UFC 152, Jones versus Belfort. Now, after the fiasco that was the UFC 151 cancellation, I think we deserve a very intriguing card, and we have one here. So yeah, top to bottom, I am satisfied with what I see there name-wise. Hopefully the fights end up being good. Like usual, preliminary card picks are in the description below. But let's start off at the top, like usual in the main card, that light heavyweight championship main event between Jon Jones and Vitor Belfort. Alright folks, here we go with the easiest main event pick in history. You gotta go with Jon Jones all day, every day. I'm not even gonna ramble on about how whack it is for Vitor to be the #1 contender. I'll just tell you guys how I think Jon Jones is gonna whoop his ass. Now, Jon Jones, what's most likely gonna happen when you're in a fight with him, he's gonna pivot and just land jabs like all day, and some combinations here and there. He's gonna sidekick your knee. Yeah, he's going to do all that shit en route to either a unanimous decision. If not, if he feels like clinching with you, he'll probably take you down with a trip. His, double leg isn't bad either. He's 6'4", but he does have a good level change in my opinion. Yeah, he can take you down like that and then finish you off with a TKO via strikes, elbows, whatever it takes when he's, in your guard. Yeah, I see that most likely happening against Vitor. Now, Vitor is a similar fight compared to like Dan Henderson, who Jon Jones was initially training for. Just keep him at bay so he doesn't get in a position where he's mid-range and can open up with a combination. Of course, Dan Henderson's a little different. All he has to do is just land that H-bomb, and Jon Jones is in a lot of trouble. Vitor, has to find that opportunity similar to Dan Henderson where he can just explode in the, mid-range game with that flurry. Now, I don't think Vitor's going to be able to do it whatsoever just because he's too obvious of a fighter. It's not like he's Machida, where Machida is, competent in terms of fighting Jon Jones' game for a little bit. He's comfortable on the outside and then pouncing in. Vitor's not comfortable in the MMA game whatsoever unless he's landing that flurry. So yeah, I expect him to get picked apart thoroughly while it's, Jon Jones fighting like Dawson, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think that's going to happen for the most part, but I do think Vitor is going to come in with a lazy flurry eventually after he gets frustrated by just getting hit in the face with jabs. So when he comes in with that lazy flurry, I got Jon Jones clinching up with him easily and then taking him down with a trip most likely, and then he'll pass guard and win via TKO. Elbows, I think he's going to crucifix Vitor or some shit like that, and then just go ham on his face. So yeah, easy win for Jon Jones, second round TKO via elbows. Now let's move on to the co-main event in the flyweight championship between Joseph Benavidez and Demetrious Johnson. Of course, the winner becomes the UFC flyweight champion, the first one ever. So this is a big deal, guys. Now, I do have Benavidez winning this fight. Demetrious Johnson has proved me wrong in the past. Maybe he's able to land combination after combination like he did against Ian McCall and do a good job of counter wrestling, but Benavidez is too good in terms of his transitions. He's very good in terms of, just boxing, kickboxing with you one moment and then clinching up with you or taking you down the next. He can do that, and, he is pretty good in terms of defensively doing that as well. If he's striking with Demetrious one moment and Demetrious goes for a takedown, I think Joseph Benavidez is going to be able to counter with stuffing it, sprawling, or, maybe just grabbing a hold of that neck and winning via guillotine. It is quite nasty. He has one of the nastier alpha male guillotines, and he knows how to wrap that shit around your neck, In transition, Demetrious really has to worry about that. I don't think we're going to see Demetrious go for many takedowns because of so. Now, I do see Demetrious trying to land combination after combination. However, Benavidez, he is a better boxer than Ian McCall. He's a better counter wrestler than Ian McCall. He's pretty much better than Ian McCall everywhere. He's faster, and I don't think he's going to be as flustered with Johnson's speed as McCall was in their second fight. So, yeah, I think Benavidez is going to be able to execute for the most part and win at least via 48-47 unanimous decision. I think he will be outstriking Demetrious on the feet. Just better combinations, more variant striking. He has some kicks as well. And I think he'll be able to out-wrestle Demetrious if he needs to. So, yeah, again, I got him via 48-47 unanimous decision. Tough fight in the end to call because Demetrious has proved us wrong in the past. It's just, I think Benavidez really will only look whack, if anything, against Dominic Cruz. And in their second fight, he kind of gave Cruz the fight of his life. So, yeah, I think Benavidez is a stud, and I think he should rule this flyweight division for a while. Now let's move on to that middleweight bout between Michael Bisping and Brian Stann. Really easy fight to pick. You got to go with Michael Bisping all day, every day here. Brian Stann, You know, pretty solid kickboxer himself. You know, we saw him look kind of nasty against Alessio Sakara. We saw him look good against George Santiago and against Chris Levin. You know, he just knows how to get those hooks off. You know, his leg kicks are pretty good. You know, he's just very comfortable as a kickboxer. However, he's only been beating crappier strikers, you know what I'm saying? Against someone who's well-rounded, like Chael Sonnen, for example. You know, he got out-wrestled to death, and then, of course, arm triangle win for Chael Sonnen. That looked relatively easy. Yeah, Brian Stann stood no chance. I think something like that's going to happen with Michael Bisping here. I think Bisping's athletic enough to take Brian Stann down. I think he has the technical skills to do so. He has underrated wrestling. You know, I think he's going to be striking with Stann one moment, being able to hang with him on the feet there, and then eventually he'll get that takedown off. So, yeah, look for Michael Bisping to outstrike Brian Stann up until he does so. I think Stann's going to be wary of the fact that Bisping has the takedown threat. I think Bisping's kickboxing in general, though, if he feels just like standing with Brian Stann, I think he's going to be very comfortable. I think he'll do a good job of keeping Brian Stann on the outside, not letting Brian Stann get any of his hooks or his close quarter combinations off. So, yeah, I think Michael Bisping's going to be relatively, you know, at ease everywhere, but I think he's going to eventually win on the ground via second-round TKO. I think he's going to be able to pass Brian Stann's guard once he figures a way to get it down to the ground and win via punches. So there it is, Michael Bisping, second-round TKO. Now let's move on to that light heavyweight match between Matt the Hammer Hamill and Roger Hollett. Roger Hollett? Really? Oh my god, pretty whack. Of course, Matt Hamill's coming out of retirement. You know, Matt Hamill should smash this dude. Roger Hollett is not good. You know, he's a brawler. You know, Matt Hamill can take a shot. We all know that. Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before Matt Hamill gets his fight to the ground. You know, Matt Hamill, if he came out of retirement, like, he should come out of retirement in order to out-wrestle dudes, because that's really all he got against Roger Hollett. You know, he doesn't want to stand with this guy. I'm not saying Roger Hollett's like a world beater as a striker, but if you want this guy to have no chance, just out-wrestle him. I think Matt Hamill will do that, and I think he should finish his fight sometime in the first round via TKO. Easy fight for Matt Hamill. But now let's move on to that featherweight bout to kick off the main card between Cub Swanson and Charles Oliveira. Damn, really excited for this one. A nasty fight. Cub Swanson, relatively well-rounded. You know, he's an aggressive Greg Jackson fighter. That's a change. He goes after it with his punches, swings for defenses a lot. Does not look as whack as Leonard Garcia, though, I'll say that. And, of course, his jiu-jitsu game is pretty good. You know, offensively, he has some flashy subs. However, submission defense-wise, I think Oliveira can definitely expose him. Oliveira, I think, is the better offensive and defensive grappler. So Swanson really doesn't want to be on the ground with that dude. I think this is going to be relatively stand-up for the most part, which will be beneficial for Cub Swanson because that's his best bet of winning the fight. However, Oliveira is still better there too, I think. Oliveira, pretty solid kickboxing, technically pretty sound, hits pretty hard as well. I think that Cub Swanson is going to be, you know, pretty much outclassed technically over a course of 3 rounds. And that's why I think Oliveira's going to win via unanimous decision, at least 29-28 across the board. Should be a fun-ass fight, though. But I think that about does it for me, guys. Again, preliminary card picks in the description below. Go check those out. And yeah, I will see you soon for a review, hopefully. Thank you for all the support once again. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Deuces for all my supporters, bruises for all my haters, and take care. Peace.